It's often said that entertainment is must in this modern world. But as the landscape of digital media completely fractures and constantly evolves, cutting through all that endless market noise to find the actual financial signal is more critical than ever. Welcome to This Explainer. I'm your host, and today we're taking a highly structured, data-driven look at the absolute streaming juggernaut that is Netflix. We are going to decode the company's business model and growth engine, dive into the financial numbers, and figure out what exactly sets them apart today. So, let's jump right in.
Nicole Pangus, their VP of advertising, really hit the nail on the head recently when she said, "There's no playbook for what we're doing." And she's absolutely right. For years, Netflix was seen as just a pure subscription play. Well, those days are completely gone. They're essentially ignoring the old rules and shifting from a single revenue stream into a deeply complex, multi-layered business model. If you want to understand this company now, you really have to let go of that legacy mindset.
So here is the roadmap for This Explainer. We'll start with the modern entertainment machine, then look at their dual-engine growth, and explore their technology-enabled AI confidence. After that, we'll cover strategic acquisitions, decoding financials, and finally, wrap up with the modern investor essence.
All right, Section 1, the modern entertainment machine and how they are maintaining premium quality. Now, notice the stark contrast we have going on here. On the left side, we have the market noise. Netflix has faced some serious consumer backlash over their crackdown on password sharing. On top of that, shareholder proposals have pointed out potential brand damage from content controversies, like the backlash surrounding the film Cuties. That is the noise. But look over on the right side. That is the signal. To survive in this incredibly crowded market, a platform absolutely has to deliver unique content and premium quality streaming. And the proof is right there in the numbers. Despite the friction, they closed 2025 with over 325 million paid memberships. Members literally streamed 96 billion hours in 2025 alone. The data clearly shows that the underlying demand for their core product is still incredibly strong.
Moving on to Section 2, dual engine growth and ads, which really highlights their recent strategic pivot.
So the absolutely crucial point to understand here is that Netflix is no longer just in the business of selling subscriptions. They are actively targeting $3 billion in ad revenue by 2026. This new advertising engine is expected to drive roughly 25% of the company's total revenue gains. But here is the truly brilliant part. They still retain the lowest churn rate in the industry. Why? Because they are fiercely protective of the viewer experience. They are only running about 4 minutes of commercials per hour. They started this ad strategy at a crawl, and management itself says they are now moving at a light jog.
Which brings us straight to the actual results. Their advertising revenue didn't just grow, it completely surged. It grew more than 2.5 times in 2025, crossing that massive $1.5 billion mark. This is rock-solid proof that their calculated low ad load strategy is rapidly scaling up to become a major financial pillar for the company.
Okay, Section 3, Technology-Enabled AI Confidence, and how we are seeing these algorithms in action.
We already know Netflix is fundamentally technology-enabled to drive content recommendation, but it goes so much deeper than just figuring out what show you want to watch next. They're utilizing their massive algorithmic power to create predictive signals for media buyers, essentially determining the exact perfect moment to show an ad to a specific viewer. Over on the production side, it's just as impressive. They actually used AI to render a complex building collapse in the Argentine series El Eternauta 10 times faster than traditional methods. What they are doing is taking AI confusion and turning it into AI confidence. They are simultaneously cutting costs and boosting creativity, all while prepping these new interactive ad formats for the very near future.
Let's dive into Section 4, the Warner Bros. Acquisition and their strategy for scaling IP.
$82.7 billion. Just take a second to really absorb that number. That is the total enterprise value of their proposed acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery assets, which follows the separation of Discovery Global. This is a definitive, incredibly aggressive bet to scale their intellectual property. By integrating world-class studios along with the entire HBO library, they are massively expanding their U.S. production capacity. This move fundamentally alters the entire streaming landscape. Let's quickly map out how the execution of a mega deal like this actually works. Following the separation of Discovery Global in the third quarter of 2026, the transaction is expected to officially close in about 12 to 18 months. Now, by year 2, this deal is projected to be accretive to GAAP earnings. In plain English, that means it will officially start adding to their bottom line profit. And by year 3, Netflix expects to realize a massive $2 to $3 billion in annual cost savings. This right here is a textbook example of scaling for serious operational efficiency.
But the real takeaway here is their strategic flexibility. Think about this. Even when structural pursuits don't go exactly as planned, Netflix still comes out on top. They had previously abandoned a pursuit of Warner Bros. Discovery, and that yielded a $2.8 billion termination fee. That contrarian safety net directly boosted their earnings and actually pushed their 2026 free cash flow forecast to approximately $12.5 billion. They are highly capitalized, and more importantly, they are incredibly flexible. Next up, Section 5, Decoding the Financial Numbers, specifically focusing on margin and efficiency.
Before we throw some charts up, we really need to establish a core fundamental analysis tool. We're talking about financial numbers and profit growth with margin, and an important financial ratio here is the EB to TAL margin, or operating profit margin. This ratio is basically a report card on management efficiency. It tells us exactly how profitable the company is at a purely operating level by showing how much revenue is retained after those operating expenses are paid. It is the ultimate measure of how efficiently this business model is truly running.
Let's look at their top-line trajectory, and it is a steep climb. Back in 2024, revenue sat at $39 billion. By 2025, driven heavily by their pricing power and paid sharing, it jumped 16% to $45.2 billion. And looking ahead to 2026, management is forecasting somewhere between $50.7 and $51.7 billion. This is a relentless, absolutely steady tempo of top-line growth, and it's all being fueled by that dual-engine strategy we talked about earlier.
32.3%. That is the operating margin they hit in the first quarter of 2026, which actually surpassed their earlier guidance. Tying this right back to our EBITDA definition, this means for every single dollar they bring in, over 32 cents is kept as operating income. Look, in the streaming world, which is notoriously capital-intensive, hitting a 32.3% margin is an absolute blaring signal of intense, sustained profitability.
And the institutional analysts, they completely agree with this picture. DBS Bank currently maintains a buy rating with a revised target price of $137. Why are they so confident? Because they are projecting a massive 22% compound annual growth rate in earnings from 2025 all the way to 2027. That means steady, compounded profit growth every single year. They are essentially valuing Netflix at a 20% premium compared to its peers, precisely because of this incredibly resilient engagement and high margin paid sharing.
Finally, Section 6, the modern investor essence. It is time to synthesize the signal.
So, what does the roadmap for their recent investment and future growth actually look like? First, they are going to continue capitalizing on their pricing power and the rapid scale of that ad tier. Second, they are actively evolving way beyond traditional video on demand. They're making major moves into cloud-based gaming, betting hard on a second screen experience, and pushing heavily into live sports to deliver massive value for advertisers. And third, of course, they have the pending integration of that $82.7 billion in Warner Bros. IP.
So we arrive at the ultimate question we have to ask ourselves today. What is in there for the investor? When you really force yourself to look past the noise, the backlash over password sharing, the various content controversies, the constantly shifting competitive landscape, what actually remains? Well, what remains is a highly efficient, massively profitable entity that is leveraging advanced technology and incredibly smart acquisitions to lock down its future. Which leaves us with this final thought to carry with us. Invest when time is right. Courage over fear. That mindset right there, that is the modern investor essence. It is all about having the discipline to recognize a fundamentally strong signal amidst all the daily chaotic market noise. Netflix has completely transformed its business model, proving time and again that it can be adaptable, highly profitable, and incredibly technologically advanced. Thank you for joining me on this explainer today. The data is staring right at us, but the real question is this. In a landscape where the old rules of media are completely dead, are you positioned to capitalize on the new ones, or are you just going to keep watching from the sidelines?